Welcome to Mark Arnold's Finance. We have somewhat of some breaking news. A very popular stock has plummeted 20% after hours after it released its earnings. That is Netflix. Now, this is a hard pill to swallow if you own shares of Netflix, but they dropped about 23% after hours because for the first time in a decade, they lost subscribers, and that was in their infancy. So they lost 200,000 subscribers when analysts were expecting a growth of 2.5 million. That's a huge variation. Not only that, it gets even worse. Netflix forecasted that next quarter, they're going to lose about another 2 million subscribers. So it seems like it's just getting worse and worse. They also said that revenue is expected to slow down severely. All these are not good signs if you're a shareholder of Netflix. They did say that they believe this is solely due to the pandemic. In other words, during the pandemic, their subscriber count shot up massively because people were stuck at home. And now that they are kind of going out and people aren't restricted like they were, they're saying that this is why their subscribers are going down, their subscribership. This is not a good sign. They lost most of their subscribers in the US and Canada where they rose prices. Of course, in a lot of the foreign countries where they're starting to get into, they don't charge as much because, of course, they want to saturate that market first before they go with any price increases. So it kind of backfired on them, I think, with increasing prices during a time when inflation is very high. So in the U.S. and Canada, it was almost 700,000 subscriber loss. This to me is something that if you're a Netflix shareholder, you're probably just going to have to ride this storm out for a while because it doesn't look like it's going to get good anytime soon. And also it's forecasted that with this next generation, Gen Z, they aren't watching shows on these different streaming platforms. They're focused solely on games, TikTok videos, and YouTube videos. So they put a poll out basically saying these Gen Zs are really not watching streaming at all. They're not on Netflix, HBO Max, Disney Plus. So this new generation, which is the future, they're more interested in gaming, which I just put a video out about gaming. Be sure to watch it. I'll put it down in the link because I think that's a very growing and important industry. So I think that this is just an uphill battle for Netflix, and we really can't right now say what the future is because with this next generation not focused on streaming, with Netflix, with increased competition, they have Disney Plus, now Warner Bros. Media, Apple, which has got a lot of cash they can, deploy, Amazon Plus. They got a lot of competition, so increasing prices is going to be a lot different now than it was before when they were the big dog and one of the only big dogs. So they're having increased competition. They're losing subscribers. Their revenue is expected to slow down, and the next generation, Gen Z, aren't interested in these streaming companies, watching streaming content. They're more interested in gaming, social media, things like TikTok and YouTube. So I think that I think Netflix long term could probably be a good bet still because in the emerging markets, they have great opportunity. But there's also all these other streamers that are looking at that as great opportunity too. So I think it's going to be quite a battle going forward. Netflix, I still think, will prove to be the #1 streamer in the world in the future. They just are going to have some increased competition now. And there's going to be some slowdown in, I would say, the next year, maybe 2, before maybe it turns around for them. But that's not a good forecast to lose another 2 million subscribers and losing 200,000 now for the first time in a decade. So I just wanted to put it out there. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you own Netflix, are you going to hold on to it? Do you think they'll remain #1? Do you think this is kind of the end of Netflix, and with all these competitors and big competitors like Apple, who has plenty of cash to deploy, as well as Amazon with Amazon Prime, and the new members to the market, like Warner Bros. Discovery, who has Warner Bros. They have DC, so they have their own, and Disney Plus has their own catalog of franchises as well, such as Star Wars, Marvel. Do you think that it's getting too crowded now? Do you think that it's time that we look at Netflix a little different? You know, they've been the big dog for a while. Do you see them slipping out of first place? I don't at this point. I think there's still a lot of value with Netflix. It's still relatively inexpensive. They don't have commercials, you know, and they have a lot of shows that we have all become familiar with and addicted to, such as Stranger Things. So I think it's just, we're gonna see what happens, but just be prepared. It's not looking very pretty right now, and I expect them to go down massively. They were at a high of about 700 in their stock at the height. Now they're down to, I was looking just now, about $260. So from $700 to $260, that's quite the decline in this stock. And I know there's some other channels like the Joseph Carlson channel, who he's very bullish on Netflix. So I'm very curious to see what he puts out. But you know, I own AT&T, so I got Warner Bros. Discovery stock. All the stocks are getting hurt streaming. Like you look at Disney too, they're down. So I think this is just something where we're starting to see that this pandemic really just was the main reason why streaming became popular. I think it'll remain popular, but there's going to be a slowdown, and now there's so much increased competition because everyone is going to it. So it's just creating a crowded scene. So there's going to be a fight, I think. There's going to be a fight between these streamers, and Netflix, I think, needs to, they are trying to get into gaming, but that is something that hasn't hit their revenue yet. They really haven't released it. So I think there's the potential with Netflix as well, is not only the emerging markets, but in the gaming industry as well. If they can somehow successfully deploy some type of gaming, then I think they bring in that Gen Z aspect. I think they're very capable. You know, this company has proven to us all that they have remained on top for a lot of good reasons. So I think that Netflix has a lot to work on now. They have some things they need to think about. And I'm sure they have, right? They prepare these reports before they announce them, their earnings. Sorry if you guys are really down in Netflix. I'd like to hear what your plans are, what you think of the company. Does this change your fundamental view of Netflix and what you're going to do now with this stock? Or are you holding tight and you'll just add more? If you're bullish on a company, I think things like this are kind of a good opportunity to buy in. As I stated, I have Warner Bros. Discovery. I think that's going to have a strong, with HBO Max and everything, that's going to have strong growth. I do like Netflix, and I was actually planning on possibly getting into Netflix someday, so I really need to analyze this myself to see if I want to get in. But yeah, this is some big news. It seems like this year so far has just been very chaotic. There's been, last quarter Netflix, their growth was half of what was expected. So they already had a big 20% drop. Now they're having another big 20% drop, 20+%. So just not a good thing, because this can take years for this stock to recover. To go from now 260, and who knows how much more it'll go down, up to 700 where it was at its height. That can take years, where other stocks where you might be in, like maybe Microsoft or an Amazon, could be growing during that 5 years, or it might take Netflix to catch back up to that, where a lot of people have gotten in probably in the $500+ range. So, is the same thing with Facebook for me. I bought into Facebook at 320 right before it dropped. It went all the way down to 190. These things happen. So you have to analyze these stocks. Make sure you're still on top of being in the stock with its fundamentals, what you put your research in the first place. If nothing changed, I think you should stay invested and add more. But if you think at this point, after you think about this, analyze it, research it, if you think, you know what, I just don't see Netflix taking that first place spot long term because of all this new competition, I think, you might think that Apple now can take first place eventually, then maybe you decide that, hey, I'm going to put a price target where I might sell out and just be done with it. But you have to make that decision. Right now, if I had to put my prediction out there, I think Netflix will struggle for the next 1 to 2 years before we start seeing healthy growth back in its subscribers. They said they're supposed to be cash positive. You know, they've been cash positive, I think 1 or 2 quarters now, but they were always cash negative. So now they're saying we're going to be cash positive. That's what they said last time. I don't know if they mentioned that now in this earnings, but maybe they can't reach that again, which isn't going to help them. But I suspect 1 to 2 years before the stock starts to really gain steam again, because they're going to need a few good quarters of growth for, I think, investors to feel solid about it and start investing again. But I think, okay, let's just end this video with what I think will happen. I think 1 to 2 years of some pain with Netflix. I think their growth opportunities are in gaming because Gen Z, they have to get Gen Z in order to be successful in the future. So you need to analyze that. Their growth in the emerging markets, can they do it? If they can do that, that's going to allow them big subscriber growth in the future themselves. I think there's still a lot of people who haven't jumped onto streaming as well. So I think there's still opportunity with that in even mature markets like the US and Canada. So I still think there's some positive for this stock. The only big negative, I think, is the competition. I think we're going to see what will happen with that over the next couple of years. I think Apple has strong potential to really shoot up pretty highly, as well as Amazon, because they have the cash flow to invest in that. And it's not a big deal to them. And they're already proven to have very successful outcomes, winning awards and stuff like that. So I think long-term Netflix, it'll still be a great investment, but there's going to be some pain, so you have to be prepared if you plan on hanging on. So let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your opinions of this kind of breaking news with their stock plummeting 23%, losing subscribers for the first time in a decade since its infancy. Let me know what you think. Let's start a conversation on this because I think it's important that we share our views so we can all kind of put these thoughts together and make the best decisions possible. With that said, have a great day. We'll see you next time on Mark Arnold's Finance.